This is the Drive-In Podcast. Take one. Bada bing, bada boom. Welcome to the 80th episode of the Drive-In Podcast. On today's episode, we have our deep dive spoiler review for The Batman, featuring a very special guest, one by the name of Big Mike, brother of Dr. O and Ricky Flicks of the Drive-In Podcast. So use the bathroom now, grab that popcorn, and enjoy the 80th episode of the Drive-In Podcast. All right, howdy doody. Episode 80 of the Drive-In Podcast is here. Shout out Jerry Rice. This is Dr. O on the horn. I'm joined by Ricky Flicks and a very special guest. Ricky Flicks, before we jump into our guests and give a much deserved introduction, a lengthy introduction, I want to see how you're doing. And you've seen the Batman for 3 times this weekend?
I have seen the Batman 3 times.
Over the week, I should say.
Yeah, over the week. Yeah, it was 6 days. Over the course of 6 days, I've seen it 3 times. 9 hours of my life. When you say it like that, it's tough, but well worth it. This movie was incredible. I'm sure everyone listening now has listened to our spoiler-free review, so you know that we loved it, but I'll tell you this, on a rewatch and then a third rewatch, it gets even better. It is so good. So go see it again if you want, but if you want to wait, fine. Wait till it comes out on HBO Max, but it will be better that time as well.
It's literally dropping on HBO Max, I think April 19th. We're like a little over a month away from it dropping for anyone to see on streaming, which is kind of banana lands when you think about it and think about the long run that Spider-Man No Way Home had and how it kind of was trying to soak up every single cent that it was going to make at the box office. But without further ado, we have to introduce today's very special guest, one that Ricky Flicks and I have been looking to have on the podcast since its inception a year, almost 2 years ago now, Ricky Flicks.
Yeah.
Right. That's how many we've done with these.
Wow.
So we have a DC aficionado, one that I lean on heavily when it comes to DC characters, one that I will spend Friday nights after a couple pops. I'll get a phone call. We'll talk about the state of the DCEU and the right turns they made and the wrong turns. May I introduce our official DC correspondent, Big Mike. How are you, kid? Welcome to the Drive-In Pod.
The Holy Triumvirate together. It's been a while. I think am I the last of the immediate family to join other than mom?
Yeah. So we haven't had Nikki. We've had
Nikki.
We've had
Okay.
PKO on the romantic comedies draft. We had Doc.
Classic.
We had Doc Senior for the '80s draft, mega draft, and then we had So I guess you are the next in line.
Well, I just had to wait for you guys to get big before I decide it was big enough for me to come on. So of course,
Right. You were just waiting for the build up here. So Mike, as I said before, you're like our DC aficionado, someone we lean on, someone we know if we go to a family party, you're going to be like conjuring up these conversations at the dinner table, whether it be about the Snyderverse, the wrong turns. As I said before, the DCEU is made, the upcoming multiverse. What were your expectations going into the Batman, and did it live up to them?
well, I texted you guys that review. It was about like comparing it to the animated series, and it did not disappoint in that turn because, you guys did the best live action Batman draft, and I think with you, Dave, you said Kevin Conroy. And
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Not live action, but best Batman, and like that's the quintessential Batman for me. So I was hoping, and I got what I wanted.
Wow.
The animated series, man. The animated series had a big presence on that draft, and deservedly so. Maybe the ultimate. We talk about this rendition of the Batman, how it's different than what we've seen beforehand. But I think the animated series just has a special place in all of our hearts because we grew up watching it together.
Oh yeah, and that Pattinson had echoes of that for sure. Like I actually did. I was one of the few people that liked Batfleck, but he was more of like an action hero. Like this is like it had the best parts of that and the best parts of Christian Bale. yeah, it was awesome.
Interesting. So yeah, we got like this Hulk busting guy. Feels like Affleck was gonna rip through the suit at some point. Very strong with the gadgets, very high tech. One that was like taking on Superman. Then as opposed to this gritty, grounded style Batman that Matt Reeves has introduced, that's somehow even more grounded than what the Dark Knight introduced with Christopher Nolan. Somehow, and everyone thought it couldn't get more real for a comic book movie until Matt Reeves here. So I guess where I wanted to start before we dive into the spoilers here, I want to get I love hearing your opinions, Mike, on the status of the DC multiverse. Do you like the direction that it's headed in right now? Following the Batman, following Peacemaker, the Suicide Squad. Do you think it's in a good spot?
It's hot. I mean, it's the hottest it's been since Christopher Reeve and Michael Keaton. To be honest,
They dominated cinemas.
I mean, we got Peacemaker, with that epic show, great soundtrack. And then we got, I mean, DC's been pumping out hits ever since Aquaman, really. You got Aquaman, you got Birds of Prey, which critically was successful. Myself, not a fan, but you got Shazam. Wonder Woman 84 was a mess, but it was overall, I'm glad it came out on HBO Max. I didn't pay to see that. And then you got Suicide Squad, and then you got Peacemaker, and now the Batman. I'm getting pretty pumped to see what's coming next with Flash and all the movies coming out. Even League of Super Pets. I'm excited to see what comes out with that.
Keanu.
Yeah.
Mike sent us the trailer for the new DC League of Super Pets movie with The Rock and Kevin Hart and Keanu Reeves, John Krasinski, that whole voice cast, which is pretty unbelievable when you say it out loud. But I don't know, Ricky Flex, where do you think the DC universe stands? Mike brought up the Flash, the reintroduction of Michael Keaton, bringing him back, Affleck kind of making his curtain call in the Flash.
Yeah, Black Adam.
Black Adam's coming. What do you think about the status of the DC universe right now? Multiverse. Yeah.
So going off Big Mike there, so Aquaman I didn't particularly love, but it was a hit. That was a big hit. That was a success there. And I think he's right. He went through the list there, and they have been for the most part churning out these hits, and they've had their misses, but their misses I think aren't as catastrophic as what they could have been, if they missed with this movie. So I think that DC's on the path, but there's still this movie that just came out, The Batman. It solidified, okay, DC still knows they could put out bangers, not just hits, but bangers. But you still don't have that trust factor with the DCEU like you do with Marvel. Because Marvel, they've had their fair share of misses, I would say, critically, I would say, over the past 2 years, whether that's Black Widow, whether that's Captain Marvel for me, and was not Shang-Chi, but the other one that came out recently. But
Eternals.
Thank you, Eternals. So 3 misses in a year, critically, that's bad. But you still have that trust factor with the MCU that you don't have with the DCEU. So this is a big year for DC. You start out with this banger of a movie that's not in the DCEU, but hey, if The Rock can carry Black Adam with a pretty good surrounding cast around him, and then The Flash with Michael Keaton's return, another Batman, we could be seeing something special here. But they got to hit in the DCEU. It can't just be a separate outside the DCU. They got to hit within. So we'll see after this year where we stand at the end of the year.
I feel like DC's kind of hitting their groove right now in a way where they have found that they just aren't going to replicate what Marvel's done. They're not going to worry as much about the continuity and making sure all these stories are connecting. All their movies aren't going to have the same template, just like you look at a bunch of Marvel movies where you have the hero and the villain with a similar motive as a foil to the hero. And then it ends at a huge CGI slugfest. It feels like every Marvel movie, every template is the same. Even looking at it had pretty cool nostalgic aspects. Spider-Man No Way Home had a very similar template to a lot of other Marvel movies. Still, it had the same feel. It seems like with this DC multiverse, they are now. I know there's been comments by Warner CEO. I think it's Noah Emmerich. I believe is his name is. He said that these movies are going to have more of a focus on the director and their vision rather than the continuity aspect that the MCU and Kevin Feige is this master overseer of all things. He's like the great and powerful Oz for every type of Marvel project. Here you can have, with this multiverse, a James Gunn style Suicide Squad in a spin-off show. Then you can have a Matt Reeves dark, gritty, grounded Batman, right? They're just more concerned with the projects independently rather than that continuity aspect. It's going to lead to good things in the future. I'm really concerned though about the DCEU, and I think eventually it's just going to feel like I'm watching, like, I don't know what it is, but like the Fast franchise almost, where it's just going to be like a roller coaster type of adventure every time you go. I feel like the Flash was shaping up to be kind of a mess. We got Wonder Woman 1984, which just felt like a popcorn movie. It seems like if you want like that artistic, cinematic type of feel to the movies, it's going to be these standalone adventures like the Batman and Joker. Any take on that, Big Mike? Does that make sense?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Joker. I forgot, like, arguably the biggest hit past couple of years. I mean, I think Batman's going to break that. Oh, and don't forget what came out this past year is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, that was epic. And then I think this is where DC, they should have gone in this direction from the get. They shouldn't have done like the team up. This plays into their strengths, because who was the first comics to have movies was Christopher Reeve and Superman way back in the 70s. Marvel really didn't start pumping out movies till the X-Men. And so that's 30 years later. We're 30 years and 4 Batmans already later.
It's kind of crazy. It's crazy how they pass the torch, like in terms of like box office domination. Obviously DC, when you think about like Superman 1980, and then like the subsequent Batman movies in the late 80s, early 90s, then you said X-Men, Spider-Man, early 2000s, but then here comes a comeback with DC with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then after that Avengers comes out the same year as the Dark Knight Rises, and then we have this, like, we basically have one of the probably the most it is the most financially successful Spider-Man movie coming up with maybe the one of the most financially successful and critically successful Batman movies. So it seems like we're living in the peak moment of fandom. You know, it's kind of a cool thing to see.
I actually like DC's approach more, and I actually am, like, after Batman, Spider-Man is my favorite. So I'm not like I like both DC and Marvel, but multiverse is more like a comic book. Like, MCU is for the general audience. If you read comic books, man, Thor speaks like Shakespeare. He does not speak like he does in the, like, Chris Hemsworth. He's not cracking jokes, because like his personality in those movies isn't that different from Iron Man. With the sarcasm and the wisecracking. Like, it's more, each hero is going to have a different book that's going to be different in terms of their personality, and like you were saying, the grittiness. And so I think the multiverse really plays to DC's strength, and actually is not great for Marvel, because what's the point of a multiverse is everything's the same story.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's almost like when you go into a comic book shop and you're looking at the different like stories, different storylines, and the different like series that come out regarding the same characters. You can almost like pick your own type of flavor, and that seems like what DC's going for. You want to have more fun, you want to have a couple laughs. Oh, here's the Suicide Squad. If you want to have like a world's finest like Batman and Superman type story, oh, we have Zack Snyder right here, you would love. If you want a realistic tale and one that features like a superhero in a realistic style universe, here's the Batman. It just seems like they're touching upon all these different like genres within the comic book universe. Same thing goes with Joker. And for some reason Joker I just don't lump in with the rest of these. It's just, I don't know if it is like the Oscar appeal it had, or maybe it's just it just doesn't have that Gotham City feel that the Batman has, and that the Snyder verse had, and that feel just doesn't. It's like I talked about with Ricky Flex how it's just kind of like the king of comedy, just an extreme take on it. It just doesn't have, it has a cinematic feel, but it's just lacking that comic book feel. But I did want to say, Mike, before we get into the review here and we talk about the road that has come to and led to the Batman, did you watch anything to prepare yourself for the movie?
Ethan and I, my wife, for those listening, we watched The Long Halloween.
Nice.
So we watched both of that, and Isa surprisingly, actually, we'll get into this in the review. She actually liked the animated movie more, the story, than the Batman.
Whoa!
So, for those that haven't seen it, it is like an excellent movie. And then I also watched Batman Year One with Isa, and that movie was so-so. But we'll talk later in the review. But I definitely saw elements of both in there, and I would say the best elements of both, especially Year One. He got rid of the crap I didn't want to see. So I was happy with Matt Reeves' decisions.
It seems like that's like the perfect like lead in to this movie. Year One and The Long Halloween have been two of like the three major inspirations in terms of graphic novel wise that Reeves has taken for the Batman. I know when Ricky Flicks and I went to go see it Tuesday night, 2 days before the movie actually came out, or 3 days, not a big deal, but they handed out The Long Halloween, the first volume of it, which was pretty awesome. It just shows you what you're getting. And Ricky's showing to the YouTube now. It shows you what you're getting with this movie, how it's going to be loyal to like the comic book characters and the story there, but it's going to have its own twist on it, which it did. It really came through. Ricky Flex, I know you're a huge fan of like the DC animated stuff, right? You check out anything this weekend?
Mask of the Phantasm. So Dr. O, Big Mike, I think we all share the same HBO Max. Someone watched Mask of the Phantasm.
It was me.
I did.
Somebody did, so I watched it. You guys, you suckered me into it. You twisted my arm, so I watched it. So I watched it, and it was terrific. But I was too busy watching the Batman. I saw it 2 more times, for God's sake.
So much in your veins right now.
Yeah, but before that, like before I saw it the first time, I did Year One, and then I did The Long Halloween Part 1 and 2. So I did the same thing as Big Mike, and I watched Kimmy. And Kimmy actually, like, as a movie, didn't love it, but I didn't mind it. But the performance by Zoe Kravitz in that was a great lead-in. I know I mentioned this in spoiler-free review. It was a great lead-in to her Catwoman in this movie. So I'm glad I did watch it beforehand.
Yeah, and I got to take credit for the Mask of the Phantasm. I watched it. A little hint for later in the episode. It does crack my top 5 Batman movies ever made. I really think it does.
Wholeheartedly agree, man.
And it really does have connections to, or like similarities to the story we just saw, like uncovering or unmasking the criminal underworld and the serial killer who's haunting Gotham City, how the Batman people aren't really sure how to perceive him, whether he's a good guy or bad guy, and he's playing into the fear in the city. It does give a lot more background on Bruce's story, but it does tap into that detective noir style too. It's just, it's so good. I love it. I love it so much. And it just follows up the animated series and the vibe that gave. Perfect. Why don't I build up? Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say, Mike?
I did watch the Twilight Saga. Did anyone else?
Just shut up. Shut up. Let's go to the
vampire, kind of like a bat, you know.
Pattinson, baby.
We're gonna have to kick him off before you can start the review. Road to the movie. Let's see how we got here. Okay. So this starts off with Ben Affleck, RIP Batfleck. But Affleck, he wants to make a Batman movie centered in the DCEU titled The Batman. We had a tease of Deathstroke following the release of Justice League. We had the post-credit appearance of Joe Manganiello, who's supposedly going to be the main antagonist for that movie. We also see him at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League looking very different. It had people like hoping maybe we'll get this Batfleck movie on HBO Max or a series at some point, looking very dim right now. So Affleck looking to make this happen. Justice League comes out 2017 and chaos ensues. Affleck loses passion for the character, has a terrible time on set, doesn't enjoy the movie experience. And that's coming off Batman vs. Superman, which is a lackluster performance, somewhat financially, more so critically. He agrees to let go of the reins as director, because remember, he wanted to direct the Batman and not only star in it. Then once he lets go of those reins, here comes in Matt Reeves. He has a different vision for the character. Affleck officially out. Here comes Robert Pattinson in a bold casting. A lot of people weren't willing to accept at the time, 5 years ago at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. Reeves comes in with a movie set outside the DCEU. And here we are today with a Batverse that's looking to unfold in front of our eyes over the next few years. So it makes you wonder, it has you excited for the future, but also has you imagine what could have been. So I'll start out with you, Big Mike, are you satisfied with just getting this like Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson collaboration, or in your heart, are you still like saddened, or do you have a glimmer of hope that we get to see Batfleck see his vision come to life, maybe on HBO Max?
No, what's the point of a multiverse if you can't really get multiple depictions? Like, I want both. Like, I saw Pattinson and he won me over, but I want, you know, I'm greedy. I want both. I'm like Carmine. Give me more. So, and for those that have seen the movie, you'll get that. And then yeah, I think HBO Max definitely, especially like, I won't even go into the Snyder Cut, but like just at the depiction of Darkseid, like I need to see more of that. So, and I mean Snyder, yeah, the way he works, like a miniseries is the perfect vehicle for him. And I think you guys were saying on the previous pod, like TV, thanks to Netflix and all these streaming services and the miniseries, and really started with Game of Thrones and Sopranos and all those guys, but it's becoming like it's almost taking place of film. And so I would love to see a depiction of that on HBO Max for sure.
That's such a good point. It seems like TV seems like an outlet. People are more willing to have these like comic book franchises, and just overall, just being able to flesh out these characters rather than just relying like for the Batverse, just having this trilogy. You can go into an Arkham Asylum series, introduce these villains, expand upon their stories, right? You have the Penguin series. You see, this is a spoiler review, so just a heads up for when we bring up anything regarding what we see in the movie, but the way Penguin's character is set up following Carmine Falcone's demise in this movie. So like seeing, like having the opportunity, because like it's unlikely Penguin's going to be the main antagonist in the next movie, but you could see a more developed character since the Batman movie. You know, you could see someone that actually has grown in a series going into the sequel, and it'll keep you invested into it. Yeah, Ricky Flex, any thoughts in that regard?
I honestly don't want a Batfleck movie anymore. I'm sorry. I don't want it.
Time.
Too many Batman. Too many. We already had Michael Keaton coming back. It's over. But the series element, I'm so in for a Zack Snyder series, because I do agree with Big Mike. He's perfect. Perfect. He's the quintessential director for a series, like a limited series. Really the perfect director for it. So if we just do a Justice League series, just with Darkseid, because you need to see more Darkseid. You can't just feed us the Snyder Cut and just tell us Darkseid's here.
You think all those actors are coming back for a Justice League series?
No, I don't. But can we just dream for a second here? Like
Darkseid was epic. Make Thanos look like a little bitch. Like, it was amazing.
So that's what I would want to see. That's what I would want to see. Unfortunately, it doesn't look likely, but that's the dream.
All right. Yeah. So, but I am ecstatic by the series we got, the future that it holds, the outside continuity, whether it's not just outside the DCEU, it's going to have no connections to Joker that came out with Joaquin Phoenix previously. That was kind of stated by Matt Reeves during this whole promo tour. He's been saying a lot of stuff that's going to get you hyped for this upcoming Batverse. But I want to go into Reeves and some of the choices he makes in this movie that's kind of different from other Batman renditions and kind of separates itself. Some of them are pretty bold, and others are kind of small touches that actually make a big difference. And the one thing I want to touch upon is the narration of this movie at the beginning and in the end by Robert Pattinson. We've never seen a Batman narrating, I guess, in all the years, whether it go for the Burton films, to the Schumacher, to the Nolan films, we haven't had a Batman I guess just like as we survey through Gotham, like dropping right his voice. We have him to the Nirvana soundtrack here. What do you think was the effect of that in this movie, Ricky Flicks, if it had any?
So after the first watch, every time narration comes, and it's not like talking to the audience, right? Like crossing, like what Deadpool does, like breaking the fourth wall. Like this is like pure narration. And I feel like that's just lazy writing a lot of the times if it's just narration. But I changed my mind after the second and third time I've seen this. I've completely changed my mind, 360. Now I love it. Because what he was saying, like he is the shadows, like all the best lines in the movie are kind of from that dialogue in this narration. And it made it feel like a comic book. The lines felt like you were reading The Long Halloween, or like Batman Year One, when he's actually like because the narration is his diary, right? It made it feel like it was year one, and I thought it actually had a great effect on it. And final thing, we just talked about how much we love the animated series, animated Batman. I am the night, like that's what it felt like, right? That felt like him saying that,
like him saying I am vengeance. That's in the animated series.
Yeah,
you know,
I am Batman.
It fit. So I completely 360'd on it. Now I love it.
Loves it. What do you think, Big Mike? Were you a fan of the narration, beginning and end?
The beginning I wasn't, and then like I saw where he was going with it, and then I was just thinking about this now. Like I love Noir films. Like LA Confidential, half the movie is him narrating while he's investigating, and Guy Pearce, and like Chinatown, all those movies, and so you start to see the influence, and then it's just what Rick said. It's like it's coming straight from a comic book, because like it's not even just like the Long Halloween and those big graphic novels. Like every issue in the anime series, again, did a great job with that. In every episode, Batman does do that. He narrates to himself. He thinks out loud on the pages. It's perfect.
Right.
It's great.
It really feels like it's coming off a panel of a comic book. Like at top left corner, it's in a different color. It's in yellow. And it's like, okay, like day one, right? Project Gotham, and like that, because he has like, it's literally a folder that he's keeping in the back end. So it's like Project Gotham, like this whole thing.
I love that. I love that. That's what he said.
It's like an experiment that he's going through. But I love the monologue. I would have been a little annoyed if he was going throughout the movie saying like day 50 or whatever regarding this project. But the fact that he's saying like year 2, and it's right at the beginning, he goes on this monologue set to an amazing score by Michael Giacchino, and like my favorite like score of the movie, I almost want to say favorite part of the score, where they're showing the shadows. They think he's there, they think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows. Like that's going to be me and Ricky Flex. We went through our spoiler free review. We were talking about maybe it's not gonna have that many iconic lines. That's one that's already popping off on Twitter like all the time. People are already quoting that one.
The Steelers tweeted it out and used it in like their team graphic.
It was like Minka Fitzpatrick, I think, and it was just like him like in the shadows. Like this is going to be one of the most recognized quotes in comic book history. But there's like he was like striking fear in the beginning, him saying fear is a tool, and then it's so ominous. But then they had to have at the end his monologue, and what I liked is the second monologue right at the end of the movie. It kind of brings the character full circle, and he's talking about like, I can't just be vengeance. I have to be more than vengeance. And it was like the two parts like matched up well with one another, had a more hopeful score at the end. And he recognized like he is the savior of Gotham. He's not just doing it for his parents anymore. I just thought it worked really, really well. Both times I saw it, I was blown away. And I think it was such a strong start to the movie too. Voice is such an asset too. Mike, what do you think of his voice in this movie?
Was actually saying that to Isa, like him as Batman, it was, again, it's like it was better than Keaton, and it's like Conroy's was. Like there was a clear difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman, but like you could hear it. Like
it was believable.
Nolan, like Batman, it's ridiculous. But that's one of my pet peeves with Bale's Batman. Like it's become iconic, but it was still like ridiculous that he chose to take it in that direction, because no one else had done that with the Batman voice. But I think it's good because it was like intimidating. At the same time, it had that dry humor. Like, you got a lot of cats.
He was too smooth with it, man. He was too smooth.
Just like thumb drive.
Yeah, you're right. That's good.
He sounded smoother when he was wearing the Batman suit than he was like as Bruce Wayne.
I think that was on purpose.
That's just he's more comfortable.
That's his true identity.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, like, I mean, another like bold, I guess, decision made by Matt Reeves is to limit our time with Bruce Wayne. I know Ricky Flex and I talked about this in the first our spoiler-free episode, but Mike, what do you think about the decision to kind of limit our time with Bruce Wayne? It's kind of sounds like you're saying that like it's just good that we see him, that he's in this all Batman all the time mentality throughout the entire movie.
I did like it because like no other movie had that much of Batman, unless you watch an animated movie or the Justice League. like the show, like Batman in a suit that much. But I loved Andy Serkis as Alfred. And I actually wish I saw more of him.
We'll
And
talk about those
I,
performances there.
yeah, we'll
I
talk
agree.
about it, but I missed a little bit. I think this is what we improved upon in the sequels. But like that relationship that Bruce has with Alfred, I kind of was missing it a little bit.
Well, he was a jerk to him.
Ooh.
He was like every single
Yeah,
scene. He was.
it was a little odd. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little taken aback.
Right.
I understood for the movie, but like it was a different choice than I would have gone. But I'm not Matt Reeves.
And like he wasn't just a jerk. Like obviously, when Alfred wakes up post bomb, the first thing Bruce Wayne says is, "You lied to me," instead of like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, sorry that I basically am the reason.
Bomb to the face, and he's just like, he wakes up, "You lied to me." He's like, "What are you talking about? Go get me some water."
I wish that bomb killed me.
But he just wakes up from a coma. "You lied to me." It's like, what are you talking about, dude?
But yeah, that was absurd. But I think we were talking about Bruce Wayne, and upon my rewatches here, like obviously this was a Batman movie, right? And he was like, in my eyes, the best Batman we've ever seen on the screen. And for me personally, Bruce Wayne is the best. I'm sorry, Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne we've ever seen. And like obviously the playboy element, he has the look, the smarts and wits about him, smoothness factor. Yes, he is Bruce Wayne. But I feel like Robert Pattinson, like he's just such a young Bruce Wayne here. He's a mourning period. He's not like, he's basically emo, right? He's kind of an emo Batman, emo Bruce Wayne. And he doesn't go out. He only goes out so he could do Batman things. He only goes out as Bruce Wayne to see if the Riddler's going to be at the funeral, right? So he's only doing that for the Batman. And I feel that now with the Thomas Wayne allegations / what happened obviously there, that the Riddler uncovered or unmasked, I guess I should say, maybe he becomes more a part of the community, because now at the end of the film, he realizes the Batman means more than just vengeance, more than just for Thomas Wayne. It's also for Gotham. And also what's better for Gotham? A more active Bruce Wayne. So maybe in this ensuing trilogy, maybe more, we'll get a more active Bruce Wayne, and maybe a nicer Bruce Wayne and not a complete jerk.
Yeah, you're right. Like he came off really cold throughout this entire movie.
Even before the bombs incident.
And he portrayed the ultimate, like the most emotional scene of the movie with him as Bruce Wayne, obviously with Alfred, recognized Alfred kind of giving him that lesson about his parents, giving him the true story regarding them, what Alfred meant, what his parents meant to Alfred, you know? So I do think the next movie, it gives a lot of growth for him as Bruce Wayne, but this was a story about the Batman through and through. Just look at the damn title, you know? It's the Batman, right? It's not, it's that's what it is going to be. And you're right. It's going to be, I think I heard Matt Reeves say it's going to have more of an emotional attachment or emotional aspect in the next one. It seems like his emotional attachment here, not only with Alfred in that one scene, but it's when he's wearing the suit and he's talking with Zoe Kravitz, right? And it seems like that's where he got in touch with, wow, maybe he's doing this for more than himself, more than his parents, right? But I did want to talk about some other decisions here. Backstory on the Waynes. We brought them up, right? So in this rendition, the Waynes are given a dark backstory. So we have a situation where the Riddler is uncovering, right, the secret lives of these high status people in Gotham. When you think of high status people in Gotham, you obviously think about the Waynes. So in this rendition, Thomas Wayne is killed along with Martha, as Thomas Wayne is running for mayor. Okay. And there are some secrets regarding the Waynes. Martha Wayne is in and out of mental institutions. Her maiden name is Arkham. And so Martha Wayne's mother is a part of a murder-suicide with her husband. Very, very dark backstory that they get here. Then you have Thomas Wayne allegedly hiring Carmine Falcone to murder someone, to murder a writer, an investigative reporter who's going to release this story regarding Martha and her mental breakdowns and things like that. So what do you think, Big Mike, of having a backstory to the Waynes after basically knowing nothing about them throughout every single Batman rendition we've seen to this point?
Well, I actually forgot that Bruce is like real Gotham royalty. I forgot his mom was an Arkham. Like I completely
think this is
forgot
new. This is
Is
new,
it?
I think.
I
Like,
feel
I've never
like
seen this.
It felt like I've
before.
heard of that before. I don't know. Maybe it is new, but like that was interesting choice and one that I think was great. And I don't know if Martha ever had like mental problems before, but um, I mean, it's great because it does line up like in for those that read the comics, Flashpoint, she becomes the Joker
was gonna say
after
this.
Bruce Wayne's killed. What do you think? I mean, it makes sense. Like she would become she would just go off the deep end after a
That's a good
traumatic
point,
event like
Mike.
that.
I
So,
like that.
Ricky, you said you were going to make the same point.
I was gonna make the same comment.
Sorry
No,
about
no,
that.
no. Good catch.
But I love what they did with Thomas Wayne. I mean, dude, I mean it's Carmine Falcone. He's a mob boss. I'm not gonna go to John Gotti and ask him to intimidate someone, not expect him to kill him. Like it's gonna happen.
Mhm.
So, but I thought that was a little naive, but it was good. I mean, I'm glad that they gave Alfred that chance to show it wasn't intentional, and like Bruce is again showing the inexperience. He was being played.
Yeah.
And I think it was good. I liked it better than the way they made Thomas Wayne Joker. This was more in line of the comics.
And yes, like Thomas Wayne, like he wasn't a perfect person. They clearly showed that, but they didn't go full. He was an awful person. They still had that glimmer of hope, saying like, "Oh, he was a good person." And that's, as an audience member, you do want to see that still at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You don't want Martha Wayne to be have that backstory that they gave her, and then just double down on it with Thomas Wayne just being a complete douchebag or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you need to have some glimmer. And then, like you mentioned, Alfred with that soliloquy he did there and how much he loved them. That was like his like moment, right? That was his like Andy Serkis's shining moment right there. Where he puts his acting chops to the test, and that gave us that. I will say, from when they introduced the Thomas Wayne unmasking till the Kenzie on the roof, right after the circus part, I think that was the biggest lull of the movie. I think that was the slowest part. The only time where I could say, oh, they could have probably cleaned this up a little bit and cut down that runtime a little bit. But that's like the only lull I thought there was in this movie. And at the end of the day, I'm glad they kept it in because they gave us a backstory that we didn't see, because they didn't give us an origin movie story here, right? We didn't get the pearls, thank God. But they had to give us something, right? And they gave us this unique spin on it, which I liked.
Yeah, I kind of love this backstory for like Bruce, his parents. Not because I love what happened. I love to see this darker side, but it's kind of, we talk about what's grounded. You talk about the political state of today, almost like nobody's clean. So it seemed like if you are a mayor running for mayor of Gotham City, a city that's full of corruption, you're not going to think the potential mayor is completely clean, right? So even if like he has this reputation as like this savior and like this family, the saviors and like kings and queens of Gotham City, like they're not going to be squeaky clean, right? There's going to be something that is going to, I don't know, ruffle some feathers if it ever came out. It's just like I feel like it's like every political movie we've seen, like no one is as good as they truly say they are. And then going on with like the Martha Wayne aspect, like I like that they gave her this background of some mental issues, because there's always this talk about like mental illness running within families. I mean, Bruce Wayne dresses up as a bat and goes out in Gotham City. That is not normal. And like he is severely depressed in this movie. Like it just kind of makes sense to me. Like, yeah, this guy's not normal, right? And they don't give much in his backstory. So when you hear that, like, there's potential mental illness that runs in his family dating back to his grandma, it's like, yeah, this guy's maybe off a tick. There might be something going on inside the melon that's just not the same as everybody else. So I thought that made sense. I also love that it sets up a relationship with this potential with like Arkham Asylum, this part of Bruce Wayne. And we talk about the potential Batfleck movie that was going to happen, how Batfleck wanted to have something set inside Arkham Asylum, almost like the Arkham Asylum video game, Arkham City, where Batman's going up against all these rogues. We have this Gotham City Police Department series that is now retroactively changing. It seems like it's changing by the day. And Reeves is saying that GCPD series is now going to be set in Arkham. So, wow, like, are we going to learn even more about Bruce's backstory through these series? Even if he doesn't participate, even if we don't see Pattinson in these series, we're going to learn more before the sequel comes. I found that insanely exciting. And it just has me pumped to see characters that introduced, like Joker, and obviously the Riddler's in there. Are we going to see Paul Dano and Barry Keoghan like in Arkham Asylum in the series? That'd be crazy. And who else are we going to see? Harvey Dent, is he going to make an appearance? Maybe predictions later.
I have a bunch I want to see.
I do. I guess there's a couple other decisions I want to talk about, but I'll keep it short so we can keep moving on. Joker, decisions made here. Talking about Matt Reeves, this like category. So we have Barry Keoghan, one scene in the movie towards the end. Riddler, right, is kind of going crazy. Paul Dano going nuts after Batman thwarts his plan and saves Gotham City. Riddler sees it on the news, but then he actually meets a companion. He has a pal. He hears this kid's laugh, and you hear potential supervillain team up in the making with Barry Keoghan's Joker. So, Big Mike, what do you think of Keoghan's appearance in this movie? Did the scene work?
I thought the scene worked because it was the right amount of creepy. But I actually kind of like the laugh. It reminded me of a Joker that everyone forgets about that also could be one of the, like, he's right after Ledger, in my opinion, and above Nicholson is Mark Hamill. Like the laugh reminded me a little bit of Mark Hamill. Not as ludicrous, but I hope eventually he gets there because that's iconic. But it looks epic, like the potential there. And like they even, did you see the nose? Like from the side, it was big and it had the big bump and then the point, like in the comics, and the hair, you could see the outline. And you're like, they're really going more authentic because like Ledger was anarchic. What's his name? Jared Leto was both in Snyder's Justice League and in Suicide Squad.
Flashy, gangstery.
Yeah, and I didn't like it either of them really. And then this one, it was like you sent that he has that congenital disease. It's like, dude, that was effed at birth, like basically screwed over, and it completely changes that look like the true psychotic Joker. It's like it's going to be another different take, which I like. So I was happy with it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I actually hope they don't really introduce him next movie, but build it up for maybe the third movie. You know what I mean? Like really let slow burn. You know, let that pay off.
So I talked to our cousin Steven yesterday about like the possibility for the next movie. What will Joker's role be? And he read something, I think it was online, that I think is a genius idea and I would love to see. Instead of having Joker as the main antagonist for the second movie, it's what's kind of be teasing at least his existence in the universe. Instead, right, probably Batman put this Joker away, right? Maybe in his first year as Batman. Maybe he's not the Joker that we come to know yet, but he probably has a prior relationship to him. What if there is a situation where Batman continuously is trying to solve a crime going throughout the city, and he continuously visits Arkham Asylum to go see the Joker, a la Jodie Foster visiting Anthony Hopkins, like in Silence of the Lambs, where he's continuously having these one-on-one conversations and visiting him, and you get to see that one-on-one interaction that everyone like drools over, like we got with the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight. But you're getting that time and time again, and the scenes are hitting, and Joker's giving you insight into like this maybe corruption that's going on, or this new killer, or whatever criminal is like taking over Gotham City.
Similar to Calendar Man and The Long Halloween.
Right. And we know like Matt, yes, exactly. And it's like Matt Reeves, he loves to pay tribute to these older classic movies. We see like Seven influence here, Chinatown, French Connection. Like, what if he like pays a little tribute here and we have the horror thriller aspect to Silence of the Lambs? I think that could be pure electricity, and it gives that opportunity for to explore Barry Keoghan's character, and potentially he escapes Arkham Asylum at the end of the second movie, and then he's the main antagonist for the end of the trilogy. Thoughts on that, Ricky Flex?
That is a great idea. That is fantastic. I did not see
Look
that
at my
coming.
chops. I'm looking at my chops
That-
right now.
Just because we said it, that means it's not going to happen. So I gotta.
I was thinking the same thing. It's too good to be true.
It's too good.
I feel like if Matt Reeves heard, Matt Reeves definitely thought of this, right? He must have thought of like this possibility.
The only time something too good to be true happened was No Way Home, and I saw it freaking coming, telegraphed. So I almost don't want it to happen.
It's like, you think about like the most iconic like villains in cinematic history, like Hannibal Lecter and Joker are up there, top 5, top 3. You
Top
know,
three, yeah.
so he's got to be like thinking about this possibility. So I did want.
I also,
Ricky Flex.
Big Mike, you mentioned how like about the at birth he's had the smile. I don't know if I just learned that from Dr. O today. I didn't even know that. So Dr. O, I don't know if you want to like mention that, because I bet our audience like doesn't know what we're talking about then.
So I did read an interview, and I also watched the interview today on Matt Reeves giving detail about Barry Keoghan's role, how he cut a scene that eventually will see the light of day. So I'm very excited when this hits HBO Max. I assume we're going to get that scene in about a month or two. But he says that this Joker, he wanted to do something different. He doesn't fall in a vat of acid, which I like. He doesn't have excessive scarring like the Dark Knight trilogy, but instead he has this congenital disease where he permanently has this smile on his face. It seems like he was bullied as a kid, and he doesn't really give much other background regarding the character. But that's just like the details in terms of what he looks like. We didn't get a great look, but it was good to have those details provided by Matt Reeves. And it's maybe something we could have waited on, but I think it's just the age of promotion that we live in, where he's going to let a couple things slip. And the other scene that was cut, apparently you do get a full view of his Joker. So that's what we're kind of looking at here. But I guess the question I wanted to have regarding like this scene in the movie, do you think it belonged? Do you think it actually fit in the movie? Do you think we basically could have had it a post-credit, or maybe just save it all together? What do you think, Flicks?
It should. I know the Batman doesn't really do post-credit scenes, but this was a post-credit scene. It was cool. Like first watch, I thought, wow, this is awesome. Like we got the laugh. I also like the laugh, Big Mike. And I think his voice, I didn't love it, but it's different. And I have faith in the actor, Barry Keoghan, whatever, that it's going to be, he's going to kill it. I really do think that, but I just don't think it fit within the movie. It was interesting to see the Riddler and how like his reaction to Batman saving all those people and saying like basically the Joker saying, hey, like, good job, bud, but I'm up next. That was cool, but I don't know. It just didn't seem to fit. I don't know. Am I crazy there, Doc?
So I didn't think it fit either, but I listened to the interview, the same interview that I'm talking about, Matt Reeves. What he meant to do, he wanted to have a character finale or a moment of finality for the Riddler. And so they wanted to show him and this plan being basically foiled by the Batman, and then teasing like his continued existence in this universe. And he thought it'd be a good idea, like to show this rogues gallery, this like potential that an Arkham like setting could have, and how it's going to be prevalent in the future for the franchise. So I think that was important, according to Reeves, for the character of the Riddler, but they didn't need it. This is basically, it seemed like Matt Reeves felt like he was too good for a post-credit scene. He didn't want to be caught to the shtick of a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and he wanted to say, no, this belongs, and you're still providing some fan service there. Did it fit? Did we need it? No and no. But am I happy we got it? Duh, I'm a Batman fan, dude. Come on, exactly. I want to see the Joker, and I want to hear the Joker. Big Mike, what do you think of the laugh?
Liked it. I just want to say, so like Riddler was echoing the Zodiac Killer. What clown do you think of with a permanent smile? Because I'm a little scared to see where Reeves goes, and you're gonna see it when I say it. If you guys don't guess
it,
I think Pennywise.
Exactly. I'm right by both counts. I think Pennywise. Like I'm a little nervous to see where he goes, but I'm excited, but cautious.
It's gonna get crazy.
I think the laugh was great. Like it's been done. Like was he like the 5th live action Joker? If you go back to Cesar Romero in the 60s, so
Leto,
it's getting
Ledger,
harder.
Nicholson, him.
Yeah, it's getting harder to come up with a unique take.
Right.
So I did like it. I liked it. I think I liked it more than Joaquin Phoenix's. His laugh was a little bit. What?
That's
What'd you
6
say?
live action Jokers.
Yeah. So
Forgot
see,
about
it's
him.
getting hard, and then like the last movie made $1 billion, and was like
Yeah.
Oscar
Yeah,
nominated.
2 Oscar wins for the same role, and then Jack
It's
Nicholson
like-
did it before. Like,
Yeah, it's like it's
So
not
hard
an
to pick
easy
up that character.
task, but he made it his own in that brief scene, and I agree about not fitting, but maybe Matt Reeves going like, I've already got 2 hours and 40. What's another 5 minutes?
Yeah, like what? Yeah, what's the difference? We've made it this far, you know. And as I said before, like the runtime, I don't mind it. I think it was. I think it was decently paced. I don't think it was poorly paced. I think big differentiation between this movie and The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, in my opinion, is a perfectly paced movie. There is no point where you are taken out of it. There's no point where if you were seeing that in a theater, you could not go to the bathroom. You could not go get more popcorn. You couldn't get a refill on your soda, or else you're missing something important or something that is just pure entertainment. This one had a little bit of lulls, had a lot of exposition, a lot of things being explained between characters that helped the story. So you might have missed something and it might have been confusing the first time you saw it. But for a 3-hour movie, I think it had me hooked, you know, from the get-go. And I was in, you know, Michael. So Mike, like, were you okay with the runtime? I know you seem like a busy guy. Were you able to carve out 3 hours of your time with no issues, including credits?
Oh yeah, I thought it was you know, I felt like it was 2 hours. Like it flew by. Like it started slow, but man, once it's the definition of a slow burn. Like it picks up, and when it picks up, it's like a train, starts steamrolling, and that's exactly what happened. And you know, I almost didn't want it to end. It's like in the last scene where the Gotham Square Garden is getting flooded, it's just like, oh, movie's coming to an end. I wish not. Like, it's just like,
sad.
And that's where I did like the end credit scene, because I was like, I want more. I need one more scene of Riddler. Like, I need this. I need another. Whether it's him going to visit him, a la Batfleck and Lex Luthor, or you know, like something. You got to visit him. You know what? I'm actually hoping for. It's a little off topic, but like Riddler will become the Scarecrow of this trilogy.
Just continuously involved.
That'd be interesting. I like that.
Yeah, it seems like that might go to Penguin, but
Paul Dano is such a big actor that they might do that, similar to Cillian Murphy.
What wonderful voice too. I mean, his rendition of Ave Maria was splendid.
Brava. I know we're gonna get into the interrogation scene, our favorite scenes, in a sec, but one other aspect I wanted to jump at, I guess we can go into our favorite scenes. Why not? Let's crack into our favorite scenes. So I guess we could just go one for one here, because like there's enough I can think of. I can think of 5 or 6 that really stick out from this 3-hour epic. So Ricky Flicks, when you start with the scene, you want to break it down a little bit, and let's just talk about if we're in agreement. So what scene stuck out to you from the Batman?
I think it has to be the car chase scene. I think that was when it was right after the first act, and then that's when the movie's starting to pick up, and then you get your first introduction to the Batmobile. The Batmobile, the music's, the scores changed a little bit. Giordano did a little change to make it horror, straight daunting, straight. The Penguin is scared out of his pants looking at this thing, and the car is stalling out. The blue flames are coming through the back. That car is a sight to behold, and the music made it that much more. Even Commissioner Gordon was freaking out, saying, what am I about to witness here? Am I going to witness like a Christine type moment? Like, it was insane. And then the chase itself was amazing. And then when like the truck, the whatever those moving trucks, was falling apart onto the Batmobile, and the Penguin's was getting away, but you could see the ramp coming up, but you don't show him going up on the ramp. It gives that like little effect, that pan back to the Penguin, where it's like, oh, well, you know he's going to make it, but it doesn't show us that. Rather, it just shows us him going through the flames, jumping over cars. Love that. Loved how it didn't show everything, made us think a little bit. And that's a lot of what this movie did as a detective movie. It just let us interpret a lot of things, but that was just like a short instant of when it did that. All in all, the car chase scene was the most exhilarating. Loved it.
Matt Reeves knows how to introduce elements of this story, whether just introducing the Riddler to start an electric opening scene, introducing the Batman to start, following it up another electric scene, and then introducing the Batmobile as kind of like this terrifying character. Like you mentioned, Christine, and Reeves taking elements of other iconic movies, right? Some cinematic classics. That's what it felt like, right? With this Batmobile sequence. And it felt like it was this unstoppable object, almost like a death-proof type of car.
Yes,
where there's
death-proof.
just nothing that was going to touch it. There was nothing that was going to dent this car. You could shoot at it a zillion times. You could hit it with an 18-wheeler, right? It's just going to bounce off, and it's on a mission. There's no way you're getting out of this, right? There's no way you're escaping it. It's inevitable. The Penguin's going to get caught here. And you're right. The camera placement is insane, right? Inside the car, like a rain smashing against the legs
Chaos.
as you're
chaos.
going, and then you have the stills that develop afterwards, the upside down first person perspective, from the Penguin, seeing the Batman basically with each step you could hear his steps with the score, and basically it's like the devil has come for your angel of death has come, right, has arrived, Mask of the Phantasm reference, right? So I just thought it was excellent. And Mike, any other thoughts you have on the car chase sequence?
It was incredible. I mean, it was again, it's a character, it's its own character, which, I mean, that's kind of been a different depiction of Batman. That's been the case. He'll start it on its own when he needs it, and the car will come to him. It's almost like it's a pet. Like a loyal. It's sidekick in its own right.
Wow. So, yeah.
It was cool, and the scene was awesome. It was just, it was a great scene. And thrilling. I mean, definitely when you say Matt Reeves says, "Oh, I got inspired by French Connection." Well, no shit. The most the most famous car scene of all time is the French Connection.
It's such an exhilarating scene. But Mike, I did want to ask, do you have another scene you want to follow up here? Was the car chase your favorite, or was something else in the running?
You guys mentioned a few. I was gonna say, the intro of the Batman and the police in the beginning, the crime scene, the Riddler. But one you guys didn't mention was, I actually loved the Coulson scene where he's getting asked the 3 questions by Riddler.
Yes.
And you could see the panic on Batman's face because he realizes this dude's gonna die and he can't do anything.
And he's almost.
He's desperately answering. He's like, justice. It's justice. He's like,
you have to do this now.
Yeah, he's like, you're gonna die. You can see the panic.
And he kind of has a glimmer of hope, he's gonna give away this final, this clue that everyone's looking for, because he has to, or else he's going to die. But it shows you how deep this corruption truly is, and what kind of danger these people are in, and how deep they're in. The district attorney, right? And him getting blown to smithereens right in front of Batman's face, and him exploding afterwards, him emerging from the shadows in that sequence. But that's also the voice is so perfect in that scene where he goes the answer is justice. It's so on point.
You can see his eyes.
And it just goes and that's a huge scene for the introduction of the Riddler, him speaking and having this huge audience that kind of resembles a social media, a dangerous influencer, someone that can garner a huge crowd on social media. And they talk about QAnon and all these other references people are making. I don't want to go into too much of that. Maybe Ricky Flicks can, but I do this showed the Riddler was this crazy foe for Batman, and a non-physical one that's going to test his knowledge, and it's going to push him to limits. He's going to realize, I have to go deeper than I ever have for any type of criminal that I faced before. But that's a great scene. I thought that's right up there with me too.
Yeah, that was my second favorite, or maybe third. But I think 2 things was reason, besides what you guys have said about it, is one, I think that was the definitive end of the first act. And Big Mike, you mentioned how the first act, a lot of it was exposition and a lot of backstory, a little bit, it was a little bit of a slow burn. I think that you used the word slow burn, but that was whoa, that was our first big explosion, right? That was our first major event. The district attorney just got blown to smithereens on a live stream. Whoa. So that was boom. All right, this movie's about to take off. Car chase scene, boom. Now we ramped up to a different level. So that, and then also Peter Sarsgaard, perfect for this role.
He was so good.
Absolutely.
He's always good at playing a slimy coward.
Yeah, he's like,
yes.
He's like, I got paid $10,000 a month.
He basically played the same character he was in Black Mass here.
Yeah.
Don't forget Peter Sarsgaard, Green Lantern.
Oh.
Parallax.
Yeah.
Night and day. Also
what I want to see, going back to like Riddler and the social media thing, I actually laughed pretty hard. He was like, "Hey guys, thanks for subscribing."
I thought that was too much.
Oh
This movie had low-key funny scenes to it, even when it was like almost unintentionally funny, but maybe deep down subconsciously it was trying to be funny.
Like the Dark Knight was trying to be funny.
Trying to be funny.
Yeah, like the Dark Knight was trying to be funny. Had those quirky lines with Bruce Wayne, Alfred, Morgan Freeman, right? Lucius Fox. This one like was funny, like not trying to be like, obviously like you have a lot of cats, like that was funny, but there's a lot of other humor that you just referenced, like with the Riddler and stuff. That was low key hilarious. Got some big laughs out of the crowd audience.
Yeah,
Well,
like the penguin especially. I was gonna say like his lines, those were intentionally funny.
Yeah,
and like him with the Spanish and like he's like, you guys don't know Spanish. Like I thought that was incredible. Then I was kind of shocked by that too, to be honest. I thought I was like, come on, you guys didn't catch on to this. But what are you gonna say, Mike? I interrupted you.
The same scene where he's handcuffed and he's walking like a penguin,
waddling
like a penguin. I laughed my ass off. I was like, oh god, that was great. But yeah, no, yeah, I was gonna say something else based on what Rick Flicks was saying, but it was no, I lost it. But I think we touched on a lot of different stuff. It was excellent.
And moving on with like favorite scenes, I'll throw one in here. I'll go with the straight up, the walking into the crime scene, the mayor's death. There's so many different like sequences in this movie. I think like the first 20 minutes I want to name as my favorite scene, just like with the Riddler intro, Batman walking into the crime scene behind Commissioner Gordon. But what stuck out so much to me, and I tweeted this, it felt like this was a different like rendition of Batman right from this moment, because it's him going into a setting where there's people around him that don't accept him. He's not just creeping around at night, lurking in the shadows. He's coming face to face with these cops that don't know what to think about him. They basically just view him as a freak and they think he doesn't belong there, but he's just there to give analysis. And he proves that he can be helpful to the case. But him seeing the mayor's son, right, making that emotional connection there, and he's wearing like the eye lenses at the time that's analyzing the scene. I thought that was a great gadget too for a like grounded type of Batman, a grittier type of Batman. It's not as high tech as like obviously like the Nolan verse, or I'll say that Nolan trilogy or the Snyder verse. But I just loved how we were getting a Batman that it was like he didn't know how to be Batman yet. He's like, I'm just gonna walk into this scene. I'm just going to walk into the crime scene wearing a freaking bat suit. I'm going to go into the club later and go see the Penguin and just knock on the club door and walk in and tear the place down. He's not sneaking around yet. He's just being himself. And that just goes to the part where we don't see him as much as Bruce Wayne here. He's just Batman all the time. He's so hell-bent on cleansing the city and gaining this vengeance and following his parents, what he kind of assumed what their goal was or what their vision was for Gotham. So that scene, what do you guys think of it? Sorry, I rambled.
No, I completely agree. I love that intro. Like you said, like it showed not only is he a freak, this is something that we didn't see with the Batman. Like people said, oh, he's a freak, but this one, like he's really a freak. The stairs from the police department, everything. But also you said connection, right? And then something in the way comes on. That was the transition, and then he goes into the Batcave, which was also different. So that was interesting. But you also mentioned the club scene. That is also competing for my favorite scenes besides the car chase scene. Both of them, whether it's the first time when he goes to see Cobblepot, the Penguin, or the second time when clearly Greg Fraser was like, oh, let me just pull out of my bag what I did in Rogue One with Darth Vader. I'll just do with the Batman here. Like both of those scenes are competing for my favorite scenes as well, but after the car chase scene. So I know just because you mentioned it, I had to say that too.
Okay. Yeah. There was just so many freaking A+ scenes here. There's the gif going around when he beats the crap out of the twins as he walks into the club as Batman. And as he's going, he's just like walking in. He's like strutting. He's just like, there's no one stopping me here. And it doesn't matter. And then when he pulls out the gadget and he hits the grapple hook that goes through the dude's leg, and then he pulls both of them, I'm like, holy crap. And this goes with a prediction Ricky Flicks had as a bonus prediction a couple episodes ago, that there was going to be this moment where there's gonna be a nightclub scene. There's actually a couple nightclub scenes, and the second one, like Zoe Kravitz actually plays a massive role in it, obviously. But the music blaring, it has like that dark, corrupt type of EDM. It's not like that Avicii type. It's more of that like dark house that's going on. Perfectly chosen as a selection, and at the lights blaring at the audience, it was on point.
Dude, the EDM music just in that scene where he's first. The Penguin's sitting down and he's talking to him, and then you can see how tense the room is. And then Selena walks in for the first time. And then camera just stops and like pans to them looking at each other. It's just, you could see like the intensity of like how like this is like a powder keg. Like if someone makes the wrong move, it was just.
And it also felt like someone shot at like a Cupid shot an arrow up Batman's ass in that moment. He was just like, he was like, holy crap, like the tension, but the sexual tension between these two already, and like just there's a spark immediately, and Zoe Kravitz sizzles like whenever she's on the screen, and her and Pattinson just really hit it off right from the get go. But you're right, then that shakedown scene of the Penguin, that was a great intro for him too. Yet another amazing intro for the character.
He's not like just like a cartoonish Penguin like he has been portrayed in the past. Like he's a threat. Like he's a criminal mastermind.
This ain't no Danny DeVito.
Yeah, this dude's gangster.
The accent was great too. Felt like I don't even know what the comparison would be. He's just like
New Yorker.
He's like, yeah, I guess he's like a mobster, like a New York mobster, but also has like that cartoonish vibe to him. A little bit.
Perfect.
Somehow, but still like feels like it could exist, and the prosthetics make him look like, yeah, this is like a realistic take rather than the DeVito character who's really got like two fingers on each hand. It's got like, looks like he's got lobster claws going on. So yeah, I thought that was yet another great rendition. This series is going to be incredible. But Ricky, do you want to run through some of these predictions we went through and we kind of analyze and see how we did?
All right, sure.
So for the listeners, and this is for Big Mike too, I don't know if he listened to this episode. 2 weeks ago, we made predictions for the Batman, 10 bold predictions. That was actually last week's episode. And we want to run through them now and just kind of go through the check boxes here. Were we right? Is there an asterisk on a couple of these? So Ricky Flicks, why don't you read them out loud, then we can assess whether we were right or wrong.
Okay, so the first one, Harvey Dent will not be in the movie. We got that right.
We were right, although we did say at one point that they were going to allude to him in the movie, which we didn't get either.
Right, and it makes sense why they didn't immediately when we got introduced to Coulson, so that was stupid. But we still kind of get it right.
What we posted on social media is that there won't be any alluding to Harvey Dent. I mean, there won't be any scenes with Harvey Dent. Correct. So in that case, put a check mark next to it. We're 1-0.
Okay, now we're not undefeated anymore. Alfred,
if you're DA in a Batman movie, your last name's not Dent. Like you're gone. So,
yeah.
we all kind of knew like Coulson's not coming back for the sequel.
Once they said Coulson,
one film contract.
Once they said Coulson DA, I'm like, okay, he's gone in a matter of minutes.
He's a goner.
like there's got to be like a timer on his freaking forehead for like how long he's last until the end.
Being cast as Uncle Ben. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Yeah, goodbye.
He'll have a nice 5 minutes. He's got to make the most of it. He's got limited screen time. He's like a 10th man on the bench. Like, okay, do your thing and then get out of there. Yeah, I thought they were going to introduce him, though, once Sarsgaard blew up in front of Batman. I was like, okay, maybe we are going to get this one. But I guess it would have been too many villains introduced in the first movie, I guess. But next one, Ricky.
Alfred will fight someone one-on-one. The bomb.
He's fighting a freaking explosive.
Fighting for his life.
Yes.
We're 1-1 then. 1-1.
Okay. Riddler's goal is to reveal the Court of Owls.
So wrong, but not that wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
It's close. It's like we're wrong, but are we? Like, next movie, Pattinson said that he wants to do a Court of Owls movie. What if the Riddler, that was his, like, he knows about it. You never know.
Like, I have a hard time believing, like, which we're going to talk about, like, predictions for the next movie, like what we want to see. I have a hard time imagining there's a group outside or higher than the group we just saw that was uncovered by the Riddler in this movie. If there is, I'll be shocked.
It'd be too similar. It'd be too similar to what we just saw.
Yeah, I felt like there was this secret society that has a linking between politics and
the renewal project,
the mob, the renewal plan and everything. It's just, I feel like we just had that story, but I would say we're close, but we're still 1 and 2.
Okay. This one was in my eyes, the boldest prediction, and we got it right. Batman's final battle will not be with the Riddler.
That was a great prediction. I can't believe you got that, Ricky Flicks. I did not see that coming. Mike, did you listen to that episode with that prediction?
Yeah, I was shocked, and you're kind of half right. I mean,
he was right.
It looked like the Riddler.
Oh,
it was different. It was a different type of Riddler. They were all Riddlers.
No, it's that
they were also vengeance.
You know,
I was just gonna say that.
You know how the Riddler has like the envelope holding it out in like one of those stills, and it's like to the Batman. You know how people are changing that to a meme being like W? That's me right now. W. Verbal meme.
Yes. It's 2 and 2. We're 2 and 2. 500.
Okay. There will be a Nirvana song in the movie. Yes.
Check. We got it. Something in the way.
Twice. You got it twice.
Very effective, by the way. Very effective.
Okay.
3 and 2.
This actually might have been the boldest. This was a good one. Carmine Falcone. Remember, they changed the name to Falcone. That was good. Also a good change that they did in this movie. Will die in Batman's arms.
I called that. And people were saying, obviously, you got the long Halloween story. It's like Falcone. You got the relationship with Catwoman. But I said, like, Bruce Wayne. They mentioned it in the scene. Like, there was a scene that came out prior to the movie as promo. It was Falcone saying, "Yes, die. You're like his father saved me after a shot in the chest." And Bruce was watching, and I was like, "Okay, he's definitely gonna die with Bruce watching him." It's gonna happen at the end of this movie, and I was right. A bold prediction. I am so proud of that, Mike. Were you shocked by that? I looked back at Ricky Flicks after that happened. I went like a quick glance. I was like, "Told you." I had to tell him.
If you see the long Halloween, you know he's gonna die. But I did not think it was gonna be like Batman's arm.
I can't believe I got that right. That was a shot in the dark. That's 100 to 1.
I mean, you could kind of see in his eyes that he realized that Batman was Bruce.
I agree. I noticed that the second time I saw the movie, he looked at him and like, it's that moment where he sees the eyes after he shot in the chest and everything. I think he did realize it. I think that was a callback there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. 7.
4 and 2.
Jim Gordon's family will not be seen, and he will fight someone. So you could say that's completely right. If you say he just got absolutely bamboozled by Batman.
Who'd he fight?
Well, no.
Wait, what are you talking about? What about a gunfight? He had a gunfight with Penguin.
If we call gunfight,
I didn't call it gunfight. This is one of mine. So it's half right, but he did get punched in the face by Batman.
Was he fighting those Riddler guys at the end?
No, I came late.
He went upstairs. He asked, like, "How do I get up there?" In like in that voice, and then he got up there and didn't do anything, but just like made sure.
Perfect impression, by the way, of Jeffrey Wright in Game Night. What you just did.
Oh, he was in Game Night.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
He was the guy who was hired.
Disney credits for this bullshit.
What a cameo! But yeah. So what? Imagine Jesse Plemons thinking of Game Night. Jesse Plemons is like a Batman villain in the next movie.
The Plump Boys.
Dano and him.
Brendan Fraser, Batgirl.
Yeah, Firefly. But yeah, so now we're 4 and 3, right? I guess that was a 2-part one, so we could say we're 4.5 and
4, 2 and 1. 4, 2 and 1.
That's a tie, right? 4, 2 and 1. Let's keep going.
Okay. Well, the Waynes were a part of the Court of Owls. That's L.
Wrong.
Maybe.
Wrong, but it still has aspects of being sort of correct because they were kind of a part of this conspiracy in terms of not with the renewal plan. Like it didn't, obviously it went into a totally different direction they intended, but like conspiring with Carmine Falcone to kind of suppress this reporter. So it shows that like they were wrongdoers. That's a word I used in the predictions. I said the Waynes would be wrongdoers, but we're still wrong. We're wrong. So 4, 3, and 1.
Okay. I'm not proud of this one. Catwoman and Batman will not make out.
I was never on board. I was never on board with that prediction. You knew they were gonna make out.
They're bold predictions. You gotta go bold. I think a lot
too bold.
The tension, just be a tension-filled movie. That's what I was thinking.
Bold predictions they're gonna make out without their costumes. Like
that would have been bold. Yes, that would have been bold. Yeah, I think I told Ricky the bold one would be like saying the sexual tension was so strong there. The bold prediction would be they aren't going to have sex. You know, like that would have been bold because based on the tension. There's a whole trailer called The Bat and the Cat, and they're just staring in each other's eyes for 2.5 minutes. You know, it's like they're gonna make out.
Bro. I'll remember Zack Snyder's tweet. Eh?
Yeah.
Or it would have been like they don't make out and Zoe Kravitz just licks his lips. You know, it's just something like incredibly whoa, you know.
Well, okay, so we're back to 500, but we're above 500 because our 10th and final prediction, the Joker will be seen as the Joker.
That was a safe one.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that was safe. But 5, 4, and 1, we'll take it. That's good for gambling. That's good.
A couple bonus ones I think we also threw in there. Do you remember the bonus ones at all?
Oh no.
I don't remember your guys' bonus picks.
I was gonna say that shouldn't fall on Big Mike if he remembers.
Yeah, definitely not him.
I remember maybe like 2 of the ones Ricky just said.
Yeah, I don't remember, but let's just say we got them right.
Yeah, 5, 4, and 1. That's a great way to I don't know, just kind of evaluate our predictions. We did so much hype. It had so much hype going into it, and then we had a lot of previews heading in, and yeah, over 500 is excellent for a movie that like it's supposed to be a new rendition of the Batman. A lot of unexpectedness to it. I think what I want to do next is kind of power rank the characters in this movie and the performances. So I guess think of maybe a top 5 that we have. Maybe I'll just run through the characters. Mike, did you prepare anything at all for like a power rank of these characters?
No, I can do it on the fly.
Okay, Ricky Flicks, do you have a power ranking at all, or do you need a second for me to like maybe talk through them?
We're doing like power rankings of like the characters in this film.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
So I'm just gonna go through what I had, and I want to see where you guys stand. I'll go through a couple characters. For my number 1 in the power rankings for Batman characters from this film, I'm starting off with Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. I think she is number 1 in terms of the power rankings. I think, as I said before, she steals the show in every scene she's in. She provides the emotional attachment, other than Alfred in that one scene, right? For Bruce Wayne, Robert Pattinson's Batman, I should say. She's sexy. She's sleek. She has I think her character was written well too, and with the connection to this underworld and how she wants to avenge her friend, but it's also you get the reveal of Carmine Falcone as her dad, and I think they set her up nice for the future too, for the sequel, and then who knows, maybe she gets her own series as she heads up into Bloodhaven. But I thought she stole the show in every scene, and I think she is the quintessential Catwoman, as I mentioned in the previous pod. I have her in the number 1 rankings. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I disagree. I thought she was great.
I think she's number 1, but she was great.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying
I think she was great.
She was great.
I think the one downside after the rewatches is like, yes, like you knew after the first watch, like, yeah, she's like doing a lot of the exposition here, but it did fall a lot on her. And my number 1's the Batman. Like,
so I had that at 2.
The best Batman we've ever seen.
If you guys have Batman at 1, I'm willing to concede, but then I would like to have Catwoman at 2.
I have Catwoman as 2.
So I guess why I didn't have Batman number 1 is because he's not the complete Batman we've seen. There's plenty of room to grow. As I said before, we didn't really get him as the Bruce Wayne that we had seen in other movies. I don't think it was a complete rendition of the character, but he's awesome as Batman, which is like what his job was in this movie. And I thought the acting he does in the suit is better than any other acting that's been done. Like even with Bale, like who he is, right? His prestige that's put upon his name. He is Like Pattinson just takes it to another level here. So I'm okay with going Batman 1. That's initially what I was thinking, but I kind of put Selena there. Big Mike, what do you think? Batman 1?
It's hard because I actually like Colin Farrell so much. I almost want to put him at 1.
He was my 3.
But he only got 10 minutes of screen time, so it's really tough to do that.
We're gonna have to workshop this.
I think you gotta remember, I loved Wright as Gordon. I thought he was great.
They're all so good, Mike. You can't all have a tie for 1.
We can't have everything.
No, not all tie for 1. I guess I would put Pattinson first. It's tough because I wasn't a huge fan of his Bruce.
So I think
I liked it. Obviously, a huge fan's not the correct way. I knew what he was doing, and I actually had a long discussion about this because she felt the same way, and I was like, obviously they're going to be setting him up to. He's realized at the end like he needs Bruce Wayne to cause change in Gotham, and so he's going to change and become that playboy, that outgoing Bruce Wayne philanthropist. So, but it's just he was so good as Batman, but he wasn't like. He left a little bit to be desired as Bruce.
Yeah,
and
just
again,
so much room to grow.
The Alfred relationship, it did bug me a bit. And Serkis was so good as Alfred, but again, a little bit of screen time. So I guess, I don't know, talking it out, I might put Kravitz number 1 over Pattinson because she was
okay. I gotta jump back in. I gotta jump back in.
She was so good. Like
but,
she was like every line she said, her attitude. I'd still like Hathaway more, but
wow, what?
Over 5.
That's shocking.
Hathaway's way bigger, man. Like she's like 5'2", 100 nothing. She's 5 foot.
Well,
nothing,
she's supposed to be small,
nothing.
petite. Like she can get anywhere, athletic. She can jump
I know,
around.
but watching
and
her,
she
like,
looks
fight,
more athletic than Hathaway.
Like watching her fight like grown men that are like Batman size. It's just like a little bit like hard to believe.
But she didn't take him out all. She got
Right.
overpowered in a few scenes. Like it wasn't just
which
her
was
like
great
dominating.
because that was grounded. But like just her performance though, like everything about her like was like Selena Kyle, and I think
She
that's
looked
why
it too, like in the comic books.
Year 1. And
Yes, year 1 at the end.
Where I give her the edge because she was more a whole performance. I liked Pattinson. I thought Bruce, like his Batman's a 10 out of 10. His Bruce was a 7.
Okay, so then I'm jumping back in here. Before you delete that, I see that on the document. Do not do that. We're not doing that because, yes, as a whole performance, Selena Kyle and Catwoman together, both were stellar performances. Batman, though, if we're talking about limited screen time, Bruce Wayne had limited screen time. So don't you dare take that. You take that highlighter off right now because this is the best Batman we have ever seen. This is the best Batman we have ever seen. Look at this mask. Look at this mask.
Yes. But
do not
it's not a complete character compared to the other renditions that have happened. Yes, the performance is awesome, but power rankings, I think Catwoman compared to her predecessors, way better, even than Michelle Pfeiffer, who probably, I'm shocked that Mike has Hathaway ahead of Michelle Pfeiffer.
That too freaky for Big Mike.
Too freaky.
Licking faces, doesn't like it.
Too weird with the cats. Licking her and stuff.
If Ricky Flicks is going to throw a bit of a fit here, I'm okay with having the Batman 1 as long as we have Catwoman 2.
By the way, that just reminds me. So the second time I watched it, I went with Sarah, my girlfriend Sarah, and I went with Johnny Sims, future guest on the pod. But look what I got here. I got this popcorn bucket, which is cool. But look at the real treasure. Look at this cup. Look at that.
Describe it. Yeah.
It's impossible to describe for the podcast listeners, but like gray, it's a dark cup. It has like the ridges outlined of the Pattinson Batman, the title on it. Then it has like Gotham in the background. Yeah, it's like edged in the cup, right? And it has like Gotham edged in the background. Yes. Yeah. And then it has like the Batmobile and inside the Batcave. It's so
then the
sick.
Bright red Batman logo on the top.
It's phenomenal.
It does look awesome. Ricky's just collecting all this memorabilia from seeing this movie 3 times. He's like, he collects something different every time he sees it.
I got it. To be the Batcave.
Wow, you look at this. He's carrying 4 different things.
Like a little kid.
Yeah, it looks like he
Christmas.
Just
opened
like
up
the Comic-Con.
it looks like he opened up these presents on Christmas, and he just asked for all things the Batman. Well, like we know what he's going to be for Halloween this year. So I guess, Mike, you okay having the Batman #1 in the power rankings to give this guy what he wants? Are we going to bow down to him?
Because I am, because like it is he is the main focus. Like, I mean, yeah, I can concede because I mean, how much screen time did he have? Pattinson, like
He was in a lot of the movie.
it's like almost 2 movies.
Yeah, he's in an insane amount of time for like he's out of the 3 hours, he's probably 2.5 hours. You know,
Yeah, I love to see a comparison of him versus like Keaton, who was in 2 Batmans. I bet you was similar length.
Keaton, you can argue, wasn't even Keaton doesn't even have top billing in the original Batman, and he takes a backseat in his own sequel. You know,
I never really thought Keaton was like amazing. I never got the hype just because he was the first. I think he's the first.
Well,
It's not like Christopher Reeve, where clearly Reeve was like
he is Superman.
Keaton, I don't get the same thing.
This one felt like a truly character study, like a psychological study of the Batman, you know, and that's something we really haven't seen with the movies either. You know, that's why I think it also separated itself. Psychological thriller, literally what it was. I also, so number 3, but you guys both had the Penguin as number 3.
I changed my mind mid-sentence.
I have Riddler.
Riddler has more screen time.
I think I would go Riddler because he was a great villain and screen time.
He was.
I don't think he was Ledger good though.
No,
as a villain.
No.
Definitely not. He'd be
Like,
number 1.
There's a pretty wide gap, but that's just because Ledger was so great, not because Dan was so bad.
What I take away from him, like he was powerful in the performance, and I said in the spoiler free, I liked him more when towards the beginning of this movie. The introduction's amazing. I like him on the live streams, like in the middle of the movie, and like towards like that front half. I think he's amazing in the suit, and I think he's menacing. But when it comes to that interrogation scene, a lot of people are trying to compare it to the Dark Knight interrogation scene. They're asking which one's better. It's not close. Like the Dark Knight blows that interrogation out of the water. There's some confusion in that scene, whether he knows he's Bruce Wayne or not. But after the second time I watched it, I confirmed like he doesn't know that Batman is Bruce Wayne. He doesn't understand it's the same person.
He doesn't know.
But the way they portrayed it was so confusing to start, but also like he hams it up a little bit, Dano, in that scene, him starting to sing the Ave Maria. It makes you laugh a little bit at a time you shouldn't be laughing. This is like the most intense part of the movie. We're entering the 3rd act, and we have this moment where you're like, okay, this is like a little bit too much it's too over the top. And I felt like Matt Reeves is watching this happen, he's not going to be like, okay, let's try that again. After Dano like goes full in on that scene, he's like, what are you talking about? I just gave it my all. Like he was overacting to the max there. And I think it took away a little bit from the performance, especially also that interaction with Joker at the end, hamming it up.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with both you guys. I also do like at first watch, I didn't like how we didn't see more in-person Riddler. I wanted to see more of him, like not just through a phone or through a laptop or through a screen, right? But at the end of the day, it kind of made sense. I don't think it was the same interview because Doc, but I did listen to one interview with Reeves, and he was saying that like that live stream element, that Twitch stream element, was like kind of connecting the audience of today, the modern era audience, to Batman that might not know the Batman comics or storyline really, so it has some sort of effect on newer modern audiences, which I do understand. I think it actually was played very well in this movie upon rewatches here, so that actually doesn't bother me as much. But now after the rewatches, I completely agree with you. I've done a 360 on that as well. He did ham it up. He did. I still think I liked it more than you, the interrogation scene. But to even mention in the same breath as the Joker, I know you have to just because the interrogation scene, you have to compare Batman interrogation scenes, but in critically acclaim wise, not even close.
Yeah. Like you could argue that Joker interrogation scene in The Dark Knight is the greatest comic book scene in history. And I put it up with anything in the MCU, including those comic book moments at the end of Avengers Endgame. I don't care. There is no better scene, character, acting, right, than the Dark Knight interrogation scene.
Like a leper.
One of my favorite of all time.
There's the context too. It hits personal, close to home. Like his best friend from childhood the last connection to his childhood is in danger, and he's desperate. It's one of the few times you see Batman desperate.
As we wrap up these power rankings, I think we should do it with a top 5, right? So we end it with 5, like great performances here. So we have the Batman 1, Catwoman 2, Riddler 3. I think we all agree Penguin's next at 4. I think we've talked about him to a great extent here, but the question becomes who takes our last spot? We're looking at, like, we have Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. We have Carmine Falcone played by John Turturro with Andy Serkis, all right, playing Alfred. We have Peter Sarsgaard playing Gil Colson. Who do you think deserves the 5 spot there, Big Mike?
Oh, it's right. I love the dynamic and chemistry he had with Pattinson. I thought with Bruce, with Batman, it was ripped again from the pages of the comic book. It reminded me, it was great, but different than the relationship in the Dark Knight trilogy that he had with Gordon, because what we said about the Batman showing up on the police crime scene, I don't think any Batman movie's ever done that.
Yeah, I love it. It felt like the animated series, dude. When he's
side by side with
like Gordon.
He does that all the time,
and Gordon's always sticking up for him.
Exactly. So I would give it to Wright. I love Serkis. Like I said, I wish I saw more. Too little. And Coulson, it's just I gotta go with a big character. I'm not gonna go with a guy created for the movie.
I think the rivalry here for the 5 spot is between Turturro and Jeffrey Wright. I really do think that.
I did not like his Carmine. I thought because he was good, but like Carmine felt
he's an imposing character.
He doesn't scream gangster to me, John Turturro.
I agree.
Carmine Falcone is supposed to be like a John Gotti, like a big, buff gangster,
Italian mobster.
Like, dude, it's physically
not
intimidating.
Mr. Deeds.
John Turturro is not. The Jesus is not physically intimidating.
The Jesus rolls, baby. Jesus rolls.
Or Mr. Deeds is Butler, like that loves feet.
He's not intimidating.
But he did do great.
Creepy. He did great.
The voice he put on was excellent. I think he was great getting into character. I did get the vibe he was a corrupt mobster. I did feel that. He wasn't physically intimidating, but I liked what he brought to the table here. Ricky Flex, who do you got? Falcone or do you got Commissioner Gordon?
I think the Falcone element that I just mentioned and that Big Mike mentioned, that puts him at 6, and I put Jeffrey Wright ahead of him, especially with that, Doctor, you were mentioning about the 7 element, like the 7, you felt it between Wright and Pattinson here, the entire movie.
Yep.
And that's what I think gets him in that 5th spot, even though I do think some of his lines in this movie or the way that they were delivered were unintentionally funny or unintentionally just didn't really get that vibe didn't fit. Like, why don't you punch me in the face? Like, I don't know.
I thought he would pull that punch.
Some of his deliveries just had me rolling laughing.
Yeah, and every single and Turturro,
he's like, we need to get you out of here. He's like, how are we gonna do that?
Open your eyes. So you know what I mean? Like, I think Turturro was such a bet. Like, I thought he killed it, but the problem is just this nature of the characters. I think Wright was a good Gordon. Turturro did very well acting, but wasn't the Falcone, or in this movie Falcone, that we wanted to see as comic book of people that love the comic book, right? So maybe we got to stop looking at it through the comic book lens and just look at it for this movie itself. But at the end of the day, has so many comic book elements that I can't not look at it. So I'm going to put Wright at 5 for me.
It's close. I have Turturro ahead, but I'm gonna I'm just 2 versus 1, and we do have to wrap up the power rankings here. But I did have, as I said to Ricky Flex in the spoiler free review, it felt like 7, like Mills and Somerset, Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman going at and basically talking with these potential suspects or shaking them down, and it felt like it was a good cop bad cop type of thing. And it felt like that relationship that we see in the animated series that wasn't explored as much in the Burton films was explored in the Nolan trilogy. Seems like it's strong here as well. They kind of started to explore it in Justice League, but obviously we never really got to see that come to fruition. Maybe you're gonna have like Keaton with J.K. Simmons in the upcoming Batgirl movie, which could be an interesting combination. But yeah, so I guess that's gonna wrap up the top 5. We got the Batman number 1, Catwoman number 2, Riddler number 3, Penguin 4, and then Jeffrey Wright's Commissioner Gordon number 5 in terms of performance rankings. So as we wrap up here, the last segment we want to do to wrap up the spoiler review and our deep dive into the Batman. This has been awesome. Thank you very much for Big Mike joining us, gracing us with his presence, DC aficionado. Let's go into some maybe villains we want to see in the sequel. Obviously, we have the Joker being teased, but what other villains are we interested in being introduced to this universe? Why don't you start, Big Mike? Who do you want to see?
I think I'm gonna take Rick's. He hasn't said it, but I think I know what he's gonna say, and I'm gonna go with Hush.
Ooh,
Is that what you're gonna say?
No, but I have it on my list here. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, so because I keep going in the background of Bruce, who's Hush. I won't spoil who he is, but he's a childhood acquaintance.
HBO Max, go watch it.
Bruce that comes back into his life in a big way. So
it could be too similar to what we just saw, though.
I do agree with that. Yeah, it could be. So we can see if he mixes it up. But Hush would be awesome. And yeah, I'll leave you guys before I say a different one. So
okay, Ricky Flex, what do you got?
So I have a few here, but I'll just say one just because I know Dr. still has to go here. I think so. I saw that for the third time I watched this movie, I saw it with Scotty Furious, Guest of the Year, DEPA winner, episode 43. Go listen to it if you haven't to listen to him. But Mr. Freeze would be interesting here. We haven't seen him since Arnold. Like we've seen Two-Face like recently. We've seen Joker a lot. We've seen Catwoman now, the Riddler. Like we've seen Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul. We've seen a lot of these Batman villains already. What haven't we seen in a while? And Poison Ivy, we've already seen like a love interest many times with Batman. So we got to see something new. Mr. Freeze, a great backstory for him in itself. Scotty Furious, will give him credit. He said this: Gotham's flooded right now. You could bring in Mr. Freeze to freeze that water. That would be an amazing storyline to do there. So credit to him. And then I was like, oh, casting. My first thought of who should play Mr. Freeze. My first immediate thought.
Ed Harris.
Someone that has some free time in his hands now. Paul Bettany.
Ooh, that's good. That's
Paul
good.
Bettany would be very interesting, and he has a lot of free time because he's no longer in the MCU. So that was my pick.
Kind of is.
But yeah. But yeah, and I have other ones, but I'll let Dr. O speak.
That's good. The character deserves a better rendition than Batman and Robin with the Arnold rendition. We need one that's less punny. And I think it provides, there's an avenue here with the flooding of Gotham. Maybe they hire Victor Freeze to kind of help solve this situation. And we have Matt Reeves saying in this promo for the Batman, the sequel, he wants to make it a more emotional story. Doesn't get any more emotional for a Batman villain than the tragic backstory for Victor Freeze. It's got that juiciness to it from the animated series. Can be a very compelling villain. But and also it's a challenge for Matt Reeves. Can you figure out a way to make a grounded Mr. Freeze story and not make it feel campy or out of place? I think he's up for it. All right. My turn. So I'm going to go off the beaten path. I'm going to give a character that has not been seen in live action. I think there could be some creativeness here. I don't want it to be the same exact story and motivation as the last movie, but can you imagine if we got a live action Phantasm in Batman? Yeah. So after watching Mask of the Phantasm, maybe they're not taking down these mob bosses. That's similar to the story we just got with the Riddler. But it'd be cool if maybe we get a little bit of insight into Bruce's backstory. Maybe he had a love interest prior to becoming Batman. Maybe he is a depressed recluse for a certain reason other than just his parents. What was he like before he put on the suit? Maybe you get a little insight in the sequel. So Phantasm, not a comic book character, but Robert Pattinson has said the influence Master of the Phantasm had on his portrayal. But just seeing that potentially could be adapted in a different way. It's like also a physical villain that Batman could be going up against. Because after not really fighting the Riddler the entire movie, you have a potential scary, brooding villain to match up against the Batman. Maybe he gets his legacy kind of tarnished a little bit after this first movie. People think he's committing some of these serial murders. So what do you guys think? Phantasm possibility, or you think it's too close to what we just saw?
Depends if they can mix it up a bit, but it could be a good possibility. I mean, that's probably one of the best like non-comic characters ever created up there. Like number one, obviously Harley Quinn, but then Phantasm. That's good. It'd be very different.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe as a third movie, perhaps, because like Joker is the Joker and the mob is so influential in Phantasm, right? And we got the mob side here, but maybe we get a Joker introduction in the second one, and then the third one is like, all right, let's bring it all together with Phantasm. Maybe I like it. Maybe not for the next movie, but I do like it as like the third. I think there's like potential there.
I will say, talk about physicality. It looked a lot like Venom. What that powers Bane that he injected himself in the climax. It's green. And then he goes nuts and he gets that strength and adrenaline. I don't know if it's an Easter egg or something to keep an eye out for.
The serum already exists in this world, right? For someone to kind of use. So I think it does tease the potential Bane in this universe. Call. They did a great job potentially setting up this entire Batverse, but also in a subtle way. It's not as much in your face like so much of these MCU projects where
incredibly done.
How like the Ebony Blade, it's like in Eternals where it's like there's something random going on and someone goes like, oh, the Ebony Blade, it's the most powerful sword in the history of the world. It's like yes, yeah, we get it. They're gonna be someone like the Dane Whitman's going to somehow possess this thing. And it's going to be in a post-credit scene. This one's more subtle. Like, are they going to do this? There's a possibility. What might happen here? Yeah.
I think just a big, like when we're just talking about this, a big issue is that this movie did so much, right? Like it had the Riddler already, and his intentions kind of like took over a lot of what these other villains do. Like, I would love to see Court of Owls, like we talked about, but we kind of saw that already. We talked about Calendar Man, or I did at least. I would love to see a Calendar Man movie, but that's kind of like similar type of character. So like, I don't know. And like Holiday, like obviously in Long Halloween, I would love to see that too. But at the end of the day, like Falcone is so influential in that movie or that comic that you can't really have that anymore. So it's just interesting to see where they're going to go here to try to separate themselves with these villains besides the Joker and Riddler than the rest, or introduce someone new like a Mr. Freeze or Hush or Phantasm, which would be pretty nuts.
Or there could be a situation, I'll just throw it out there as we wrap up, that Harvey Dent gets introduced in one of these spinoff series, maybe in the Penguin series. We need a new DA. We got a new crime boss. Maybe here comes Harvey Dent at the end of that series. Maybe he melts half his face. All of a sudden, you got a villain for the second one. You know, it's really unpredictable what's going to happen, but this is what is so great about fandom. It's just having these conversations and trying to predict what's going to happen and watch us be ultimately wrong. So, it's the best. So thank you again to Big Mike, our DC aficionado, for joining. Okay. For this episode, we'll make sure to bring him back. We didn't get to our draft today, unfortunately. Or are we doing this? No, we're not. So I'll edit this. So we will have the draft at a later date. This episode's gone on pretty long with this deep dive for the Batman. So we're going to wrap it up there with episode 80. So thank you again, Big Mike. And let's have you on soon. Okay. What do you say, dude?
Thank you, guys. Thanks, boys. And for everyone listening, just my podcast is
quick plug.
No, I don't got one. But thank you. Yeah, it's been a treat.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's going to be warmly received. Okay, one of our favorite guests, probably we should say our favorite guest, tied with PKO, just because they're the closest to us and they have such expertise in the fields that we ask them to talk about and discuss. So that's going to do it for episode 80 and our spoiler review of the Batman. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us on wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it be Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple. Make sure that you follow us on social media at the Drive-In Pod. Okay, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. That's going to do it for episode 80. Until next time, we will smell ya.